Well, good morning, listeners. Tony Pellegrini here from the CETL office, and we're doing our monthly podcast on teaching and learning at Southern Utah University. We have a valued guest with us today, Bill Heyborne from the biology department here. I'm going to let Bill tell you a little more detail about Bill, but Bill is an associate professor of biology. Last year, he was our Board of Trustees Faculty Award winner. We're very proud of Bill and the
Ah,
achievements that he's made.
thanks, Tony.
And we want to steal some of his great ideas this morning, if that would be okay. So, Bill, would you take a moment or two, introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll just jump into the questions. Does that sound okay with
Sounds
you?
great.
Thanks,
Thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and just chat for a few minutes, Tony. Really, thank you for the opportunity. So let's see. I'm a native of Southern Utah. I grew up in Kanab. I was actually born here in Cedar City. This is where my dad grew up. My 90-year-old grandmother still lives a couple blocks from campus, so that's kind of fun. Um, I didn't start my undergraduate education here, but I ended up transferring here and graduated from SUU back in the dark ages, and had a phenomenal experience here. It was night and day different from the experience that I had when I began my undergraduate career. So transferring here was just a tremendous opportunity for me. And so finished my degree here. Took a year off, which was a good decision for me for a number of reasons, and worked in the biology field, and then went on and did a master's degree, and then a PhD, and then ended up teaching somewhere else in the Midwest, and I was there for a few years, and then an opportunity came up to come back to SUU, and I honestly didn't think I would ever end up back here. It just I don't know, just different. I thought I had different goals and whatever, but I was always experiencing some pressure from family about when are you coming back to Southern Utah, and I always just said, well, there's not a job that really fits with my skill set, and then a job came up here that did fit, and so then I was like, okay, here's my chance. I'm going to apply. I won't get it, but then I can at least get them off my back. Like I applied and they didn't want me, but obviously I applied and they did want me. And so then it was a challenging set of decisions that had to be made regarding whether we were going to come back to Southern Utah. But we did, and it's been great. So this is year 11 for me here at SUU.
Exciting, exciting. And time flies fast, doesn't
Oh
it?
my gosh.
And we were talking before the talk. Boy, it's a lot different than even 11 years ago, isn't it,
It
Bill?
sure is. It sure is. And when I think back to what it was like when I was an undergraduate here, it's just, I mean, the heart and soul is the same, but the opportunities that are here, it's such a different place. So,
And I think that is wonderful. That's one of the things that I wanted you to address today. Maybe of those opportunities that you see through the activities, clubs, sports that you sponsor and support here. What are some of the things that you do to support those opportunities?
yeah. So I advise a couple of different groups here on campus. One is Omicron Delta Kappa National Leadership Honor Society. So I was not involved with this group as an undergraduate, but the really cool thing about ODK is you can the circles that exist on campuses, they can induct students, they can induct faculty, they can induct staff, they can even induct community members who are closely aligned with the university, and they can invite them to be part of the circle. So I was actually inducted as a faculty member at my prior institution, and really fell in love with the organization and what it represents and the opportunities it presents for students. And so during my first year here on the SUU campus, they were trying to get a circle established here. If you remember Donna Edelman.
Yes.
So Donna was an ODK member, and she was trying to get a circle here. And it's no small feat, actually, to get a circle on your campus, because this is a very prestigious honor society. And Donna sent out an email like, are there any other ODK members on campus? So I figuratively, raised my hand and so got involved in bringing the circle to campus. And so I've been involved with ODK here on the SUU campus my entire time. And it's just a great opportunity. I get to rub shoulders with some really amazing student leaders because, we tend to induct people like student body presidents and, those sorts of folks. And so it's just a great opportunity for me to learn from them and learn, um, principles of leadership that I hadn't necessarily thought about before, and provide some help and support for those students as they're crafting their own leadership style and then going out and serving in the community and beyond. It's been a real joy to watch that happen. So we just had the induction of new members last week on campus, and it was actually kind of fun. Former President Mike Benson. He's at another institution in North Carolina now, but he's on the national board for ODK now. So he was our keynote speaker. Remotely. One of the cool things that we've learned is how to use Zoom and other tools effectively. So he zoomed in and gave the keynote, and so it was fun to reconnect with him a little bit, and just a fun opportunity. So in addition to ODK, the other student organization that I advise here is the SUU Animal Ambassadors. So you maybe have seen us out and about. We got all these critters that we use as a hook, a tool to get young people in particular really interested in STEM. And so let's see, I think this semester we've got 40 student volunteers, 49 or something student volunteers who are doing programming. We visit with about 8,000 people a year around southern Utah. And actually, it's not just southern Utah, because we've been down into northern Arizona and over into eastern Nevada. But we take our critters on the road and use them as, again, a way to engage with kids and get them thinking about and talking about science. And who doesn't get excited about snakes and lizards and Oh, come on. What about turtles? You like turtles and frogs?
Yes, I
love
turtles.
Okay, everybody loves turtles. So it's funny because we bring out a turtle and you get all the and then you bring out a snake and it's just really interesting, people's differing reactions to the animals that we bring out. But I love that opportunity that I have to be in elementary schools in particular, and just see the excitement that kids have for that stuff. And if we can foster that a little bit, keep them interested. We always talk a little bit about kind of college and career readiness when we're in those situations. I always have my students talk about what they study at SUU and how fun college is. And so hopefully it's planting in those kids' minds, someday I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna study this stuff because it's really fun, and maybe some of them will come to SUU too. So anyway, those are the two student organizations that I lead here on campus. Keeps me plenty busy.
You are preparing future animal ambassadors.
That's
aren't
right.
You?
That's right. Or maybe mathematicians or engineers or
Everything,
whatever.
Everything. Well, it is a joy. It is always a joy. And over the 11 years you've been here, it's been a joy to visit you. But I don't come to your office very often. I think I came once, and I had the moment. And so in here is much more. You have to be careful when you go to Bill's office.
Or you never know what I might have tucked away in my pocket, Tony.
That's true. That's true.
There might be some cockroaches in there, or a lizard or something.
A lizard and cockroaches I can step on, but it's the snakes that scare me. Anyway, I do appreciate you. I was very, very interested to hear about your connection to Cedar, your background here to Southern Utah. What were some of the things from your Southern Utah background maybe that helped you prepare to decide or become a teacher?
Yeah.
I know you took a year or two off, as you explained, to get into biology and work on some of those aspects. What led you to teaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll be honest and say, well, let's see. When I first started out, I was going to be a veterinarian. That was my goal. And then I lost interest in that somewhere along the way for a variety of reasons. And so then I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was taking all the prereqs to sort of open up every available opportunity. So I took all the pre-med stuff, all the pre-dental stuff. I just didn't know. And at some point I thought, well, maybe I'll be a teacher. I had some really great and influential teachers growing up, including a really influential high school biology teacher who I'm still in contact with. We still talk about things anyway. So in the infinite wisdom of the education program, they stuck me into a course with a 20-hour practicum that very first semester that I expressed interest in education. And they put me in the old Cedar Middle School. It was just across the street from campus here. And I spent about 7 minutes in that class, and I realized this is not for
Oh,
me. I it, I, I honestly think that middle school teachers should be the highest paid employees in our country. Like I don't I get on my soapbox here, right? But those I mean those people, they deserve like the ultimate reward in heaven someday, right? For doing what they do, because middle schoolers are tough. And I just realized I don't have the disposition to deal with middle school kids. So I did my 20 hours, but it was painful. It was so painful. But I realized this is the end of the road for me in terms of being an educator, and so then I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and at one point along my road, Professor Dean Winward, who's still here on our campus, he asked me some really pointed questions about graduate school and got me interested in graduate school, and so then I went off to grad school, and I had the opportunity to do a little teaching while I was a graduate student, and I realized, oh my gosh, college students, they're a lot more fun than those middle schoolers. I think I could do this. And so when I finished my master's degree, I had some time on my hands because I was waiting for my wife to finish a degree. And so I started teaching as an adjunct in the community college system in Oregon. And I did that full time for a couple of years. I was on several different campuses, driving all over Western Oregon, trying to get enough courses to make ends meet. But man, I loved that. Loved it. And so when it came time to pursue a PhD, I was not only looking for something that I meshed with in terms of my discipline, but I really wanted somewhere that was going to help me develop as a teacher, as an educator. And so I ended up at the University of Northern Colorado because they have a program in biology education, which is what I did for my PhD. And there are two tracks you can do there. So for your research, you can do biology content, or you could do education stuff, pedagogy stuff. And I did biology content stuff because that's where my first love was. But then I took a bunch of coursework in education. I took ed psych and educational theory and all this stuff, and had a very carefully mentored teaching experience as a graduate student, where I put together an entire course, but I worked with an experienced faculty member to put that all together, and it just solidified my desire to work at this level and my love for teaching and learning with college students. So anyway, it's kind of a long answer to your question,
no,
but
that's great.
that's my journey.
Well, that gives our listeners a connection another way to connect with you as well. I think that's wonderful, and I love that. That I love that. Again, combination of teaching and content, and how both are important and passions for you. I think
Yeah.
that's very profound and very powerful.
Yeah.
With your addressing educational issues such as psychology or those types of efforts, certainly you have acquired some methods to check for your learners' understanding along the way as they're in your class. You're not just teaching; you're helping learners. How do you help your learners or assess? Are they getting it so that they can move forward?
Yeah.
Is it just paper and pencil? What do you do?
I mean, there's definitely some paper and pencil stuff, right? But that's much more summative for me. The formative stuff is the stuff that happens all along the way, every day, every minute that I'm in the classroom with the students. And I think a big part of that for me is body language, and I hope that I've really become astute over the years at reading students' body language, and the furrowed brow, or the head in the hand. I mean, those are pretty overt signs. But just as you're working through things, working through an activity, or having a discussion or whatever, I mean, you can read faces, right? If students are making eye contact and they're nodding affirmatively, I feel pretty good that they're engaged. They're following the conversation. If I see them tuning out, if I see them, shaking their head or kind of furrowing their brow, then I recognize, oh, they're not getting this, they're not connecting in some way. So then it gives me an opportunity to sort of back up and maybe start again. Um, some more overt ways that I do that. I do a lot of thermometer in my class. So the if you're totally getting this, that's thumbs up. If you have no idea what we're talking about, that's thumbs down. And then where are you on that thermometer, right? And I use that all the time with my students. And then it allows me to just look around the room really quickly and see, hey, half the class is below at the halfway mark. We can't leave this idea yet because they're still not getting it. So let's figure out another way to connect with this concept. Um, and I also use 3x5 cards in my class a lot. I used to use these electronic tools like TopPad and some of these things where I can ask little questions and have them respond. But I got frustrated with the technology because inevitably there was a handful of students who their phone was dead or they couldn't get on the Wi-Fi or the frustrations with technology just it became too much for me. And so I just started asking all of my students in my classes, hey, buy back a 3x5 cards when we start the class. And then you're going to use these to communicate with me. And so if we're moving through something and we get to a point where I sort of feel like, all right, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, I'll say, take out a 3x5 card and allow the students, okay, self-check and ask them a couple of questions orally and have them respond. And then I have them, quickly pass them in, and then I can flip through them really quickly and see kind of where they are. We sometimes do that as a ticket out the door at the end of the class. What was the main point of today, or what was the muddiest thing from today? What are you still not understanding? Sometimes after a long weekend, I'll just use those 3x5 cards as a way to just engage with the students regarding their personal lives. Hey, tell me, 2 fun things you did this weekend. So it's not always all serious because I think an important part of that relationship in the classroom is having the students see you as a person and you recognizing that they're people too. And so having that 3x5 card allows for a little bit of back and forth dialogue, even in a big lecture class, right? And then as they pass them in, I can comment, oh my gosh, somebody went rock climbing this weekend. Where did you go? And so just engage in a little bit of conversation. But I love those 3x5 cards and as a way to check understanding just as we go.
Well, and your connection with and love for and passion with Southern Utah, many of those hikes. Many of those places. You've been there.
Yep.
And not that but that's, it's really not biology, but it's a way to stay connected.
Oh, yeah.
And like you mentioned, you've stayed connection with your own middle school teacher that you've had.
Yep.
And it's through those experiences and activities that happens. And so content is important.
Yeah.
But boy, if you're teaching human beings.
That's absolutely right.
You're not teaching. You're teaching content, but you're teaching human beings.
Yep, absolutely.
It's easy to see. Well, for me here, I'm sitting here, but it's easy to hear. It's easy to sense. It's easy to perceive your love for Southern Utah, your love for Southern Utah University, your love for teaching. Can you talk to us about kind of what developed that love, how that passion created and has developed over the years?
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of my disciplinary enthusiasm is just it was inborn in me, and then just supported by my parents really early. I sometimes tell my students I have the greatest job in the world because I was the little kid who was out, poking around the ditch banks and the creek and whatever every day and collecting bugs and lizards and snakes and putting them in my pockets. So, we joked about that earlier, but this is something I really did as a kid. I'd put them in my pockets or a mason jar or whatever and haul them home and show my mom. And my mom was naturally kind of squeamish about those things, but she didn't let that be known. And she was so supportive of me and those interests and took interest in that love, that passion of mine. And so I tell my students, I just never grew up. I'm still that little kid who goes out to catch bugs and snakes and whatever and put them in my pockets. But instead of taking them home to show my mom, I now bring them to campus to show my students. And so
your mom's probably pretty happy about that.
Indeed. So that part has never changed. I've always been enthusiastic about sharing nature and science and whatever with other people. Um, my enthusiasm for working in higher ed and at SUU in particular has definitely grown over the years, and it's become more complex over the years too, because it's changed from just this love of the discipline to an understanding of um, of how complex the learning process is, and I guess my goals in life have really changed from how much biology can I teach my students to how can I help my students think about the world in new ways, and how can that then benefit them as they go out into the real world. And so of course I want them to learn some biology along the way, right? But particularly with my non-major students, I really don't care. Don't hear don't let my colleagues hear this. Fred and everybody in biology, don't listen to this next part, okay? Like I really don't care if they memorize the dits and bits and parts and pieces of bodies or ecosystems or whatever concept I'm teaching. Um, that's so inconsequential in terms of their real life. What I really want them to take away is a fascination with how their body works. If I'm teaching human biology, or a fascination with the natural world around them, an appreciation for those things, an understanding of how finely balanced those things are, and how little perturbations can really set things along the wrong path, whether that's with our own personal health or whether that's with global, human-induced change on the planet. That's really what I want them to take away, because they're going to need to care about those things as they go on to become lawyers or teachers or doctors, or whatever it is they're going to be. Um, that biology, um, the specifics of the biology that we do along the way are just a vehicle for helping them develop as thinkers and learners. And as they go off into their real world lives, hopefully they'll remember enough about that passion that they felt for biology, that when questions arise, they'll seek out that information on their own. Um, there's not enough time in the world to dump into their brains all the little bits and bits, right? It's really all about thinking like a biologist, and that's what I hope to instill in my students.
And that'll make great citizens of the world.
Right.
Be able to help them
Right.
appreciate that. Bill, you've been absolutely a wealth of wisdom today. I don't want to leave without, and you've given us wonderful ideas and suggestions. Any last words of wisdom for teachers or learners here at SUU to make life a better life as we move forward?
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently and talking with some of my colleagues and friends about is, and I think this has been really brought to the forefront by the global pandemic, and the way that we as educators have had to sort of switch up how we approach this teaching and learning relationship. And what I've come to understand more than ever before is um, our learners are just people, just like we are, right? And they have hard things in their lives, and and I don't know. I think prior to the pandemic, I don't want to say that I was really hard nosed, but I think that my level of empathy was lower, and I think that the pandemic has increased my level of empathy, and I'm not so skeptical anymore when students come to me and they're like, oh, my grandma died. There's these old sort of jokes about, wow, you had 6 grandmothers. They all died this semester. Wow. Um, I'm just a little bit more willing to take students at face value. And if they come to me and they, hey, I'm having a hard time with X, Y, or Z, I want to engage in some conversation with them. And then let's find a way to work around that and help you to still be successful. So I guess my last sort of word of wisdom here is students, teachers, we're all people. And this is a very human-centered enterprise that we're all engaged in. People aren't perfect. People do and say dumb things. We, yeah, me too. I tell my students sometimes about that my mouth opens and junk falls out before my brain engages. Um, we all just need to afford one another a little bit more grace, and it makes this work that we're engaged in so much more enjoyable when we recognize that in general, people are doing the very best they can with the tools that they have available. And again, yeah, sometimes they screw up, they fall short, they do dumb things, they make poor decisions. Um, but we can work together to find solutions to that, and that's where that grace comes in. So
I love that filter of grace, that you're using that filter as that comes in. But Bill, that's a two-way street, isn't it?
yeah, it
People
is.
see you through that filter as well, too. And that's how we are going to, I think, make things work in the next few years as we move forward.
Yeah, totally agree.
Bill, what a joy to be with you. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us today. Friends out there, be brave. Go visit Bill in his office. You never know what you'll find, but it'll be worth your time.
There's
And
not a snake in there right now. There is a big lizard, but not a snake. So come on by, Tony.
that I can handle. But too, if you'd like, I think Bill would be very open if you'd want to come into his classroom, watch his cards, watch his thumbs up and thumbometer.
Absolutely.
Please come by and make a visit to that. We appreciate you, Bill. We're grateful for your association, your collegiality here on our campus. Please keep it up. We love your passion and your personality. Friends
Thanks,
out there,
Tony.
we'll see you next month. Thank you so much for all you do, and make it a good day. Ciao, ciao.